The Intellectual Gentlemen's Club is for conversation and dialogue on a host of different material, covering mind, body, spirit, science, and the strange. Intellectual and gentleman are loose terms here. Ladies can also be gentlemen in this setting, and anyone with a thirst for knowledge can be an intellectual. The opinions expressed here are our own and not subject to regulation. Looking at mass media presented to us, we find it lacking and wish to deepen discussions. By having a long conversation format, inherent ramblings and blatherings may take place, which is all part of the fun. We hope you enjoy. And now, without further delay, we give you the pilot episode of the Intellectual Gentlemen's Club podcast. All right, hey guys. My name is Jason Abbott. I'll be your host today for the Intellectual Gentlemen's Club. Joining me today is going to be our co-host, Matthew Abbott, brother of mine. And we also have Toby Aylesbury.
Bring it.
He's a friend from the ages that we just rekindled about last week.
Yeah, it's been real.
Yeah, it has been real. First off, I just wanted to welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. If you've listened to other podcasts in the past, we're probably going to follow kind of the same type of format that you're used to. Shout outs. I just want to, some of the inspiration really that's come from this has been from other podcasts, primarily London Reel, Midwest Reel, all the other reels out there that are coming up. The Drunken Taoist, Warrior Poet, Joe Rogan Experience, of course, Duncan Trussell Family Hour, Brian Callen, the Disinfocast, the Chris Schul Journey, and a new one I've been listening to is Tangentially Speaking with Dr. Christopher Ryan. He's a pretty interesting character. He's got a lot of interesting stories. First off, I just want to get acquainted with three guys that you're going to be talking with today. And first off, I've already introduced myself as the illustrious Jason Abbott. I'm not going to really go into our work histories or anything. I kind of want to leave that out unless you guys want to discuss it specifically. But I'm a father. I have two children between the ages of 8 and 12. Then I got the dog, the rent, the wife, the whole deal. This is something I wanted to do. I had like a creative bug in me. I just felt like it's something I needed to do. I worked through a lot of resistance to get this done. And I like to do just some kind of out there stuff. Most people will tell you I do extreme type of things. I do like to mountain climb. I'm going skydiving this summer. Anything in the outdoors that's kind of adventurous is really what I'm into. But I'm also into talking deeply sometimes with just people who have either the same ideas or vastly different ideas, and I just like to get different perspectives on everybody's thoughts usually. So, Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Jason's brother, as everybody knows by now. I've been pretty much jobless off the books for a good portion of my life, involved with the music industry and other creative stuff. Right now I am a chef extraordinaire and totally into this idea to do this podcast. Sounds like a lot of fun, and we have some pretty interesting conversations between the two of us. So
right.
I think other people would like to listen for sure. Other than that, I don't know. I don't really know too much to say.
You're kind of downplaying your music experience a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I do everything from all different electronic stuff and experimental stuff, disco stuff. Done pretty extensive touring. So I've seen definitely a different side of things from having the family and the kids,
Right.
So I think it's a good contrast to have for sure.
What are you going by now? Secrets?
Yep. Lived off and on in Detroit for 15 years, probably.
Yeah, Matt's a hardcore city Detroiter. Me and Toby are outskirters.
Suburbanites.
Yeah, suburbanites.
I've lived in Berlin, Amsterdam, New York, San Francisco. Where else? I think that's probably about it.
The Humboldt area.
LA. Oh yeah, Humboldt for a summer. LA for a summer. So yeah, been around, seen a bunch of weird stuff happen, weird people. So yeah, definitely seen a different side of things for sure.
Cool. The intro that you heard, that's off of Matt's stuff as well. So, Toby, why don't you break it down, buddy?
Man, where do I start? So, like Jason, I'm kind of married, done the kid thing, and I've been married for a long time. For as young as I am, I got married right out of high school and basic training, did the military thing for a while. Got out after doing some cool stuff there, and just kind of fell into consulting and some other stuff. And I'm an entrepreneur, own my own business, and trying to find other people who like to talk about things other than what's on TV.
It's rather difficult sometimes, isn't it?
It is rather difficult. You get that deer in the headlights look quite a bit when you want to start talking about physics or metaphysics or some of the stuff that we might touch on with the intellectual gentlemen's clubs. When Jason started this up and I saw it, and I was like, man, that sounds cool. Just regular guys talking about super stuff. And when I say super, I don't mean super like 70s super. I mean like super as in things way past what most people would generally talk about over dinner or a burger. And so this is really exciting to me to be able to kind of stretch my mind a little bit and get some other opinions and other views on things.
Yeah, totally.
Cool, man. Just to kind of give us different options or different viewpoints today, I kind of arranged it to where we have Toby is a believer. We have Matt, who's basically a self-proclaimed atheist, and I like to consider myself basically an agnostic. So we'll cover a lot of different positions today, at least. As far as education as well, I think we all have varying levels of education here. Toby, you kind of put yourself through the real deal over there.
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about that.
Did 4 years working full time and going to school full time at Harvard, and got my degree in economics a few years ago. So I'm a trained Harvard economist, and gives me a little bit of a different perspective on some things, especially as a Republican at Harvard. It was sometimes difficult, but yeah. And then
I'm sorry, you said as a Republican at Harvard it was difficult.
Yeah, because it's a very very liberal Democrat place.
I would think it would be different, but I didn't go there. So.
A lot of people have that notion that it's real reserved and conservative,
Mm-hmm.
but Harvard pretty much from the beginning has been cutting edge, and sometimes that falls in line with the Republican way of thought, and sometimes it falls in line with the Democrat way of thought. But they're always trying to push the envelope, and right now they have swung to the left, and it seems to be hanging there a little bit longer than usual, but it is what it is.
Gotcha. I actually just got done reading a book called The Harvard Psychedelic Club about when Timothy Leary and his colleagues over there went through a bunch of different experiences. It talked about, over the ages how it went through, but it was interesting how it started off as just a clinical trial, and then it kind of exploded from there. And then Leary kind of went off and did his whole self-proclaimed messiah of the LSD culture, counterculture or whatever. But I didn't know that Harvard was like that. I thought it was very stuffy.
Is it mostly because of the sciences and things? Because I know a lot of on the science front, at least some of the weirder stuff that people could be into. I think that hangs more to the left sometimes. I don't know. I don't really know what Harvard is mostly known for. Is economics?
It's known for everything, really. I mean, that's the thing
Ivy
about
League,
Harvard.
right?
I mean, it's the oldest school in the Western Hemisphere. It got was it up to 15 graduate schools now or something like that? It was ridiculous. It's the endowment is in the billions. I mean, I think it's the largest endowment in the world at any university. It's just amazing the resources that they have and the brain pans on some of the professors and students. Really, it's just amazing why they lend themselves to liberal thought. I mean, I think right now, because of where we are in time,
politically, I mean? Or?
No, well, yeah, but because, the people who are professors and are kind of leading the university now are the people who grew up in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where their thinking was.
Flower children.
Right, so they're they're the flower children turned yuppies, and now they're professors. And
They're the older hippies.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
experienced
they're
hippies.
the ones who are running the show at Harvard right now.
Yeah.
And so, for better or for worse, I mean, they give you a better or a different perspective on things.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you, kind of one of the topics I wanted to touch on today would be education. This kind of leads into there, but I've been listening to a lot of lectures and podcasts, obviously, about the educational system and how many people think it's completely broken. Not that it just needs kind of like a quick patch, but that the concept that schools in general, from grade school going all the way up, they prepare people for almost an obedience training instead of aiming people towards what their passions are.
Right.
How is that in upper education, would you say, compared to lower? Not lower education, but
Well, again, it depends. If you're going to a school that's known for the hard sciences, or if you're going to a school that is on the forefront of modern thought or whatever, it's going to be different. And so I think Harvard, one of the things that Harvard does, and the Ivy League and a lot of the upper crust schools people that I've dealt with that have gone to MIT and Stanford and all these others, they tend to teach you how to think critically. That's not something that you learn how to do in the U.S. public school system.
right.
In school, you learn these are the questions that are going to be on the test, so this is what I'm going to teach you. Make sure you can remember them. They turn you into a memorizing student. And so that's why people think that the guys on Jeopardy are really smart, when all they really do is have a really good memory.
Fact base, right?
Right. They're great at Trivial Pursuit and Jeopardy, but if you ask them to figure something out,
Apply that knowledge.
right,
basically.
they're going to be like a monkey holding a football. But they might figure it out, they might not. But I think the more you exercise that, it's just like anything else. You get better at it, and the upper crust schools and the private high schools and the people who prepare you for Ivy League and for the upper crust, they teach you to think critically. And I think that the upper crust wants the lower crust to not think critically. And so that's what they're taught to do. They teach them to sit in a row, and they teach them that you'll go to the bathroom in these 10 minutes and at least 10 minutes only, and between hours, and this is when you're going to eat lunch, and these are the people that
It's
you're
like
gonna
prison.
sit with. Exactly.
Yeah, it's going to affect their profit margin if people start thinking, right?
Exactly. Educators don't want to think like that, Matt, but that's exactly what. I mean, if you just take a step back and take the numbers off the uniforms,
Right.
a lot of schools are run exactly like prisons.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason. They want you to learn to do as you're told, be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there.
Which is valuable to some degree.
It's
However,
extremely
There
valuable.
should be guidance and not direction. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be, this is the way that it's going to be.
Authoritarian.
Yeah. I mean, you still have to leave it open for people. I mean, yeah, people, you need to know facts about certain things, but just because you have facts doesn't mean it's still not open to interpretation. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think schools, at least that's why I don't think, even in high school, I never finished a full year of high school. I'd always either get kicked out or I would drop out. And it's because I was not ready for that. I was the more creative type.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember.
I had no desire or need to learn algebra because I knew for sure that I didn't want to, that's not what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Sure, I guess it would have been good to know, but that's not how my mind worked.
Right.
And the public schools were unwilling to work with me on that, other than think I had problems. And I don't think it was exactly problems that I had. I think my mind just worked a little bit differently than everybody else. And
They just
they put me into to the class with retarded kids and stuff, and out here was me just didn't like school, and that didn't mean I was retarded.
they threw you in the in the pile.
Yeah, they had me changing diapers of kids and stuff in middle school. I remember I had this girl in a wheelchair. I was responsible for her, and when she would have spasms and spazzed out, and they would put it on me. It was
That's just
disgusting.
crazy.
Yeah.
How can and you're the same age? You're in middle school,
Right.
So my daughter's about to go in middle school. You're talking 11, 12 years old. To to put that kind of responsibility
12
on
and
somebody
13. I mean, yeah.
who is already outside of what you would consider, a normal pupil. So you put all these people in a room together and say, okay, take care of each other.
Yeah.
Was there
See you guys at
supervision?
3:00.
Yeah. I mean, it was one class, and it was. I was 13, 14 years old, and here this teacher is showing me flashcards meant for third graders. It's
They had you figured wrong. Is basically
It
what
was-
happened. And it
it's-
happens a lot, unfortunately.
and it's
Not everybody's.
teachers should be paid more. I think that's definitely, but I also think that having these kids go home with 4 or 5 hours of homework after spending 8, 9 hours in school, I think that's insane.
I think there's a lot to be said, I think, about competition with, especially Asia, with Japan coming up and China coming up and their education routines. But I never liked the the grade school, middle school, high school. I hated going every day. I despised it. And as soon as I graduated high school, you go to college. That was what the plan was for me, and I had my whole life figured out. And I did go to college, and I'm glad I did, because that's where I found what I really liked. Not necessarily, I didn't find out there what I wanted to do when I grew up, but I was treated more like a client versus a worker mentality. Like I know I didn't have to be there. I wasn't going to get in trouble if I skipped school. It was all up to me. It was my responsibility to take.
And I think if you give kids that responsibility, 9 times out of 10, they will show you that you don't, depending on how old they are, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's what you tell kids they can't have, that's what they're going to want.
Right. It's the taboo syndrome.
Yeah. If you leave it up to kids, and if what would you want to do? I knew that, like they still say, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? What you would be happy with, a job that you would be happy with for the rest of your life, is what did you want to do in grade school? What did you want to grow up to be?
Outside of money,
And
what do you want to do?
I mean, I knew when I was in middle school what I wanted to do. I wanted to do music or art or something
That was
along
clear.
those lines.
You were on like the pioneering edge of techno music back in the day. We are just after our Commodore 64 hit the door. When Dad had a computer, you were on that thing with Ableton or whatever program it was.
Fast Tracker.
Yeah, I mean, you were on it like all the time. Everybody's complaining like Matt's on the computer doing his thing, but you used it for something that you really loved, and that's the direction you wanted to go.
And I figured that out by myself. Music. Imagine if school taught me that, how much more I would, I think kids want to know what they want to do. If you don't want to, if you want to be an artist, then take more art classes.
Right.
If you want to be a mathematician, then take math classes. I'm not saying it shouldn't be a little bit of each, but I think force feeding creative kids with history and science, the older I get, the more I like that stuff,
right.
Of course.
But back then
I wanted to rebel against it because I did not like it. I didn't want people to tell me what I did and what I did and didn't like. And I think there's got to be guidelines, of course, but I still think it should be kids can figure things out for themselves, man.
Well, it goes back to the old argument: are we in the business of education, or are we in the business of training?
Right.
And so, are we trying to educate our kids? Or are we trying to train our kids? And are we trying to teach them to think for themselves? Or are we trying to teach them how we want them to think?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it comes down to. And I think most of the public schools, for one reason or another, I think there's a lot of good-intentioned people out there that are trying to do the right thing and help kids. But the system itself, and I don't think it's broken. I think we're getting exactly what we're paying for. I think that, I'm a bit of a conspiracy realist and think
like
that think that, if our education system was a higher priority, then it would get more money. It would be doing better. But the government and the powers that be are getting what they're paying for. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want people thinking too much. They want them watching American Idol and Monday Night Football, and just leave the thinking stuff to the people who are trained.
Right.
Right.
Well, the thing is, I put a post on Facebook, I don't know, it was a week or two ago, that there's always money for war, but there's never enough money for education. And it seems like we're always pouring money into other,
But it seemed like if you
underdeveloped
had more
countries and-
education, there would be less war anyway.
Well, that's the thing. When you educate people, I think they have a better understanding of the world around them. And that's part of the whole globalization process. Where this, the United States empire that's throughout the world. That's it's got that's its own sidebar there. But I figure if you can send soldiers over there, to fight and die for the American people, you may as well have people educated enough to know what they're over there fighting for.
Exactly. And I think that I a lot of the times it's disgusting how they go into the inner city to find these kids that have nothing, and present them with, like, they wave a $50 bill in front of their face or something, and
For a
they don't,
sign-up bonus or something.
sign up and here, it's just, if there's a difference between wanting to go there for the reason to defend your country or other reasons, and then there's another reason to going to war just because you and your family are broke and can't afford anything else. And can't get a good education. I like I said, I've lived in Detroit for 15 years. Talk about horrible public education, man. It's what is
I
it?
hear horror stories.
One
all the
out of
time,
7 kids graduate in Detroit or something. It's insane, man.
Yeah. Well, it's not like we're going to fix anything here talking about it, but it's good to. I think it's important to talk about things and give people different perspectives on what opinions are. So if you're out there listening in iTunes land or on YouTube or whatever, obviously you're not going to have the exact same opinion as us, but maybe some of you will.
Post it up.
Yeah, have a discussion. We're all over. You can post something on the website, Twitter, Facebook, any of those. It's going to get hit by us for sure.
This is a safe zone. You can say what you think, and it's completely safe. All ideas are welcome.
Yeah. What's said in IGC stays in IGC, allegedly.
Why don't you give the Twitter and all that?
I'll do that at the end.
Yeah.
I'll wait to the end. I'm not going to bombard you guys with commercials. Speaking of commercials, we do not have a sponsor today because this is the pilot. So if you're out there and you're listening and you want to sponsor us, I'm not going to be sponsored by Coke or Pepsi or anything. Some kind of product that is,
I don't think they're going to be banging down.
I don't think Pepsi is going to be banging down the door exactly. But we're going to want to promote things that we believe in, and so there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, Matt, you posted something interesting on the Facebook page yesterday about telepathic rats. There's some experiments that are going on.
Yeah, I think
Thousands of
this has
miles
been
apart.
everywhere on the news. I read it yesterday on, I don't know where I read it.
I saw it on Huffington Post, I think.
Yeah, now it's everywhere. But 2 rats, one in Brazil, one was in North Carolina. They worked together on a task, communicating telepathically from implants in their little rat brains.
Now I have rats at the house. I have 3 rats that I adopted from the Humane Society, and they're very intelligent and lovable creatures. I know rats get a bad rap a lot of time. New Yorkers. I got a buddy who says he's a New Yorker. It's in his genes to not like rats. And out of all the small mammals, we researched a lot of what we were going to go with, but rats are for me, they've always been docile and
Yeah, I don't mind rats.
yeah, they're friendly. So
I don't even mind mice. I don't like bugs, though. It's another story, though.
so you're not gonna be watching any Fear Factor anytime soon. I'm
No.
sure. The kids found that last week. That was great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe Rogan.
No more, no eating bugs, no cockroaches for me. Some guy just died eating cockroaches.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that if you
He was
haven't-
trying. He almost to win a snake or something, and he ended up dying after he ate like 2
there's
cockroaches.
some kind of allergic reaction he had. He was allergic
Yeah,
to
well,
something else. They
you
didn't.
know,
So what kind of implant was this that they put in their brains that
I
that
don't
enabled
really-
them
Some
to
kind of
communicate
harness.
telepathically?
I don't really know exactly what the implant was. They don't really go too much into it. They had a leader rat and a follower rat. It was in their cortex, was in the form of an electrical signal. But that just shows you. I don't know exactly what that shows you, but it's possible. And I'm sure that brain implants are not far off. you know?
Well, what they're talking about in there, what really grabbed my mind is there was a quote in here. It was so great. It was like a brain net. There it is. The concept of a brain net. That's something else I wanted to lead into this when we were talking about it, because there's different schools of thought. The most followed school of thought right now, as far as like the brain and consciousness, is that consciousness is internal to your own brain. So I experience consciousness on my own level. Toby, you do on yours. Matt, you do on yours. So everybody has
what's green is green to me is not green to you type thing.
Something like that. But then you have others who are pioneering fields of consciousness that state that consciousness might be a field and that we are all receivers of it instead of producers.
Mm-hmm.
So when people have like meditation sessions, prayer sessions, heavy duty fasting, anything where you're trying to create some kind of mystical or psychedelic experience, through drugs or whatnot, there's this underlying, and with all religions, they have this oneness with everything. So whether you call it God, whether you call it the universe, whether it's Allah or the Lord,
but I think that could be triggered in the brain by things like this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it's a receiver of consciousness, then you open certain doors to allow that in, or you shut certain aspects of your own brain down to let it come in, or for that to come out.
Yeah, but your brain definitely changes in those situations.
I would agree. I mean, regardless of anytime you're experiencing some kind of altered state of consciousness, it's called an altered state for a reason, because it's not your baseline. So, if you're tripping on mushrooms and you're walking down the street and some dude's just coming back from work, you're going to look all whacked out to him. You are going to be whacked out, but he's not going to understand what you're experiencing. He's going to look whacked out to you, too. Well, I'm sure, yeah.
So what's next?
What do we got on there?
Well, in consciousness, it's kind of like a river, right? No matter where you put your toe in, it's going to be different. And you can go back 10,000 times. And every time you stick your toe in that same spot in the river, it's going to be different, because the river's always changing. And consciousness is always expanding with everybody who's observing and taking notice of it and thinking. And so every time we do, it's going to be different. But it's always there. And like you said, you're either participating or you're not. And there are different levels of participation. You can jump in the river, or like I said, you can just stick your toe in.
Well, I think everybody is
participating. How can you not participate in consciousness, though?
I mean, let's think of humanity as a web. Okay, not unlike the internet, but every interaction you have with anybody throughout your day, whether it's a smile, whether it's some kind of sneer, or an intelligent conversation like this, or throwing something at somebody, every interaction you have detriments that person's emotional state and how they're going to treat another person. So I think with whatever, if you're on a phone call, if you're getting a text or whatever, any type of communication with another human especially affects that whole web. You have one person that can do something disastrous, like these shootings or whatever you want. I'm not going to go there today, but any of these drastic things that pop up, it affects the consciousness of the entire world, obviously.
Right, but that's just it. We're not just receivers. When you stick your toe into the river, it affects the way that the river is flowing.
True.
And so you can cut yourself off by that, by choosing not to participate, by not thinking, by not getting out there and putting yourself out there and taking risks, by not making eye contact, by not smiling, by not talking to somebody on the street.
But it'll still happen sooner or later. Something will happen to where you'll look at someone.
Oh, right. But you can still cut yourself off, and the consciousness as a whole is affected by that. Whether you participate or not, you are affecting consciousness. But you can pull yourself out. You can opt out,
right,
of doing. You can go
be a hermit,
exactly.
There's people that will, I watched this documentary a few years ago, and it's called Alone in the Wilderness. This dude, seriously, and you guys may have seen it, but he just seriously just goes up one summer, chops a bunch of trees down, and lays them down for his next trip the next spring. So he goes up in there in the spring. He brings an axe handle, a hammer head, a very light pack with a couple pots and things like that. Builds himself a cabin, alone in Alaska, from scratch. He stays in this little shit shack and then builds this beautiful, handmade. This guy was a, master carpenter or something like that. And I think this was in the 60s this happened. And, when he was like 80 or 90 years old, he had to leave the place, and now it's a national landmark, I believe. I forget what his name is. I'll have to Google it, but you guys can Google it and you know how to find stuff. It's Alone in the Wilderness, but he just opted out. And it was interesting because in that documentary he was talking about, he made a side reference to like women. You could tell this guy really got fucked by somebody, some girl in high school or ex-wife or something. And he was just like a woman.
Bitter.
So he was knocking it. It was just kind of comical that, I don't know if that was the reason for him leaving or whatnot. It didn't go into it, but you're absolutely right. You can opt out of things,
And whether or not you participate or not, if you choose not to participate, consciousness is different. Whether you choose to participate, consciousness is different. So instead of just being a receiver, we're more of a transceiver. We're affecting it, but we're also participating in it, and by participating, we're receiving. And we can choose to receive and listen to what we hear, think about it, ingest it, and decide whether or not it's for our benefit or not, whether we choose to believe it or not, or we can just set it aside.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying it's kind of both?
Oh, it's absolutely both.
Okay.
We're experiencing it, but we're also affecting it.
Have you heard about morphic fields?
Yeah.
Okay. I was listening to a podcast. I think it was Midwest Real. They were talking about this. Rupert Sheldrake. You can look him up. He's been on a couple of the podcasts I've watched too. But they were talking specifically about animal functions, flocks of birds, schools of fish, things like that. How within an instant, the whole pack or the school knows exactly what to do. There's no communication as far as we can tell with sound. There's got to be some other kind of communication that's going through. And I've heard people, some people say, the lateral line with the fish is, very, very sensitive, and, they can feel these slight movements in the water. And then I've also heard things that, like the flocks of birds, they may be able to feel sensitive air pressure changes, but that they also might have it hardwired in their brain to where if they're moving this general direction and they feel a certain gust of wind at one specific point in their body, it moves. And by one bird moving, it affects the whole flock. Because you do see it, and it's not all instantaneously. You do see, like a wave coming through. It's not, they don't move as a solid object. It's more of like a wave. They
Right.
turn into parabolas and,
A lot of
different
people
shapes, obviously.
have talked about this on the level of sports, because you can see it when you have a team that's been playing together for a long
And they're in
time.
the zone.
Well, it's not necessarily being in the zone. It's about, being used to each other, knowing how everybody is going to respond to one stimuli
Mm-hmm.
or one stimulus. And so you've got one thing that happens, triggers an event in 12 different people on the football field, to bring it down to everybody, to make it something that everybody can say. You got 12 dudes out on the field, and if you're on defense, as soon as the ball is snapped, you know exactly what you are supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a flock of birds, if the wind changes, if suddenly you're flying into a headwind and the dude that's been up there in the lead has been there for a while, then the guy in the back knows he's supposed to move up. I mean, it's a trained way, it's a trained response to a specific stimulus.
I can see where you're going with that. My issue is it happens so fast. Because when you're on a football field,
It happens fast to you. It might not
True,
be
yeah.
as fast to something
yeah,
tiny
time is
compared to
relative
you.
too. Like you're talking about ants, and you can, yeah.
The
it's-
lifespan of an
Point
ant
taken.
is quite different than the lifespan of you,
Right.
meaning the time is different to them.
Mhm.
And it's not ingrained. It's like when you want to teach a dog to be a sheep dog, you don't just stick him out there and he naturally starts herding sheep. You stick him out there with a dog who has been herding sheep his whole life, and he learns from that other dog. And it's the same thing with birds or geese or fish. You get a new fish that joins, hatches out of an egg. He either stays with the group or he gets eaten by a shark or whatever.
Right.
And he learns to, move when the others move, and it's about survival.
The Darwinism.
Right. And I mean, when I was in the Army, it was a lot like that. When we had teams that were really good and worked together, we didn't have to talk. We didn't need hand and arm signals. When we were all on our game or in the zone, however you want
Right.
to say it, we were all moving as a single unit, and as every, I was on a small 4-man team, and we would be out in the field for long periods of time, and we didn't have to worry about whether or not somebody was going to catch something, or whether or not somebody was going to see what we were seeing. We knew that as soon as something happened, we knew exactly what we were all going to do, and we knew how it was going to happen. We didn't have to worry about it, and that just comes through training and time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the same with a lot of these, what do you call it, morphic states and things like morphic fields. I think a lot of it is, and we might not see it, but radio waves respond to everything, and that's all basically everything is. It's some kind of energy field, and it all responds to something.
Well, and there's the electromagnetic spectrum is so vast, and our visible light is like 0.1% or something of the spectrum. You can measure radio waves, X-rays, microwaves, gamma rays, but there's also things out there that perhaps I'm willing to consider that there's senses out there that we don't quite know about. And I'm not even talking about the sixth sense with telepathy or any kind of psi type of deal. I'm talking even advanced beyond that. There might be
even sixth senses isn't that many.
Right. I mean? That's what I'm saying. Is there's so many things out there.
There's things that are out there that we can't even fathom to come up, because if it doesn't fit into those 5 senses, we can't register that.
You must quit.
Yeah, you can't register that. You can't fathom what that could possibly be if it doesn't fit into 5 senses itself. So,
well, even something outside of your normal experience. I've read books on this, that when the Spaniards first came to the New World, that the indigenous people could not see them in their ships when they were coming.
I've heard that.
They said that finally somebody saw that the waves were breaking weird at a specific spot, and he stood there for days staring at this spot. And then suddenly,
they kept getting closer and closer.
And suddenly, it's not that the ship came over the horizon. The ship suddenly started to take shape in something because he had seen it and now had a reference point for it.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that part of cognitive dissonance? Like you can't. It doesn't fit with your theory of truth, so your brain almost bucks it completely and doesn't allow you to argue with yourself.
Exactly. You have no point of reference, none whatsoever, and your brain doesn't know what to do with it.
So
I'm trying to think of an example that would be for us.
I'm thinking of like an alien spaceship or something, but we're so accustomed to like media, and we won't go into the UFO reports, but even just being desensitized from film, Independence Day, Aliens, Prometheus, countless films, sci-fi, that. Okay,
the aliens are a physical thing.
If you see, I think if I would see something, however strange of an object it would look like if it was hovering there, I would say, my brain would have a reference point to say, okay, yeah, this is an alien spacecraft, or this is an advanced.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what shape haven't we seen before?
Well, when you're talking about the indigenous people, right? They never saw the shape of a gigantic ship before,
Right.
So. How big does this thing have to be? Like they don't even see the ship.
Yeah.
Until it's like, well, like what is this thing? Like, when does it pop into play? I mean,
I can't.
You see the waves changing. That was the reference point, is what you're saying, right?
That's what the reference point was.
And then they built something around the waves.
Right.
I mean, that's.
But the first time it's like the first time you saw an airplane, you saw it, right? I mean, not that I can remember when I was that young, the first time I saw an airplane, but that just seems weird to me. I don't know how that would. If it's there, it's there. Can't look through it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have probably heard about indigenous people in the Amazon where, they've never seen a white person before. And they're totally untouched by any kind of modern society. And then,
there's a tribe in the Amazon that saw an airplane for the first time, and what they did is they recreated it from memory and built one out of straw and worshipped it as a god. And that's
wild.
Yeah,
this is called the Black Swan effect, and there's a book by, I think his name is Nicholas Taub, and it's one of the required readings for economists at Harvard. And it's all about, things are always, you believe certain things until all of a sudden something challenges that. Everybody always believed that swans were white until they went to Australia, and lo and behold, there was a black swan. Everybody believes that yes, today is going to be mostly like yesterday and tomorrow is going to be mostly like today, until all of a sudden something happens and it's not.
Well, yeah.
And so that's what a lot of this has. Our brains just can't always get around what to do with some of this new information.
Well, I mean, it's similar to, we have a general understanding about the Big Bang and how the Earth was created, and things like that. The Earth was flat at one point, and that got shattered,
Right.
Exactly. So now we know that the Earth is a planet here, and now we're finding, planetary systems from basically most stars out there that we can see. You can see some type of protoplanet or something around it. It's expanded our vision of what the universe really is and what's out there. But let's take, where we know we're made of atoms, and they're doing fantastic work over at CERN, with particle colliding and things like that. They're coming up with particles that have only been theorized about. But when you come up with a breakthrough like that, say it challenges Einstein's theory of relativity, you have to almost put that on the shelf and think of it objectively for a minute and say, well, does this fit? If it doesn't fit, you must have quit.
But if it doesn't fit, that doesn't mean it's not right?
No,
I mean, so
you have to expand on it at least. Like Newtonian physics, they're still legit, but they were expanded on with the theory of relativity.
But like the world being flat fit according to what people thought, because that's what their maps said, that's what their eyes told them.
They were always told.
That's what everybody had told them, and then suddenly somebody said, you know what? I don't know if that's right. And sometimes that's just what it takes.
They're probably burned alive for saying it.
That's probably, yeah. He was a heretic.
So, I mean, that challenging thought, I mean, if it doesn't fit, that doesn't mean that we should reject it. That just means that it needs to be investigated a little bit more thoroughly before we decide we must quit.
Right. Yeah. What are other some kind of understanding? I mean, I'm trying to put myself in a place of, of a Native American and seeing these gigantic ships come in and just being able to see it.
Well, turn it around. Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to a third world country?
No, I haven't.
That was as a dude who grew up in suburban Detroit and suburban Oklahoma City. The first time I went to South America and I saw how the rest of the world lives, I was shocked.
I think probably every single American probably would be.
I'm talking, it was almost one of those eye-opening, ridiculous experiences that leaves you forever changed.
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm seeing kids, without any clothes, peeing on the dirt floor right outside their little shack, and this is how they live. And I always wanted to, but I never got a chance to talk to some of these people because I wanted to ask them, what do they do on a daily basis? What do they think about? What do they want for their kids? But
what are their primary issues?
Right.
They've got to be survival.
Do they even know
issues.
what is achievable out there?
Right. I mean, what is an issue even to them? I mean, is getting into college an issue, or look at me, what is college?
Hashtag first world problems.
What's college?
We're so privileged over here, It's shitty.
You drop some food, you have the 5-second rule or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a
people would kill each other for that piece of food.
5-day rule.
Yeah,
but it's not so much about their state, which for whatever you think.
It's about us.
It's about how you receive that and the fact that
or what do you do with it?
Right,
the new knowledge, that new.
And so after the first time I saw that, I spent some time in West Texas. And I drove out into the middle of nowhere in West Texas and saw that there were people in the United States living like this. And I was like, nowhere in any book, in any movie that I've ever seen, or news article.
Bad for tourism, dude.
Bad for tourism, I know. Don't go to West Texas. No, West Texas is great. But I was like, how have we never seen it? How do we have people living like this?
We're sheltered, dude. We shelter
even from
ourselves.
what you see in our own metro area here. I mean, people in the suburbs. If I could put them in the car and take them on a trip of some of the places that I've even lived myself, they would be shocked too. And it's out of sight, out of mind for them. You know what I mean? I'm gonna stay in my comfy little home and drive my car to the store and not walk to the store. And,
It's what we do, though. I do it with my kids. Most people do. You shelter them from specific
things.
But
why are people from the suburbs so scared to live in the city to where you don't need a car? You know, you can walk to places. Why? What is so scary about that? I don't understand. You know, do they think that they're going to get robbed?
Yes,
or,
I think they have a general consensus, at least, you know, people that don't get outside their bubble, that, you know, as soon as they cross 8 Mile in the city of Detroit, you know, they're going to get fucking raped and robbed and left for dead. And
That's what I was told.
Well, yeah, that's what I was told too. And
I've been robbed a handful of times, but I've lived down there for 15 years.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
Before we became adults, Dad drove us down there, if you remember, probably a couple times. Like, this is the city of Detroit. You know, this is how things work down here.
And
so
I thought it was
exposed
awesome
to a little bit
when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and I saw the big
I was
tall
scared
buildings.
out of my fucking mind because
and I saw the people.
Yeah.
I was totally into that.
You know what I thought of? I thought of movies. Like,
Mhm.
you know, you see the city is where the bad shit happens, where the bad people live, and the freaks come out at night. So if you're in the city after dark, you are fucked.
Well,
See, I
that's not how it is.
I thought the city is where the action happens. And, you know,
I guess.
at night, you know, it's no different. You just have things to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
You don't
my
get in
dad-
trouble with the police for walking down the street.
My dad told me if you ever find yourself in Detroit after dark, don't stop the car for anything. No stop signs, no stoplights.
Yeah.
You just keep moving.
I mean,
If
you know,
And the
back-
cops
back
will
in
tell
the-
you that too.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you know, that's not too far off from a while ago, but, you know, not saying that Detroit has totally redone itself.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it
think
still
there's some
sucks.
recent-
There's a lot of things that suck about Detroit, but from when the Cass Corridor, when I first moved down there, which is now Midtown, you know, it's a huge difference, man. Even directly downtown, it's relatively safe, and unless people from the suburbs come to Detroit, that city will always fail. And as long as you have the city council in Detroit that doesn't want white people to come into their city and take over, it'll never fail. I think I'm totally against having the idea of a financial manager, an idea
which, by the way, which just happened today.
right. And I'm against the idea of
Finally.
someone coming in and disassembling an elected official, you know, elect people that were elected by the people. But at the same time, I
But
think
if you're
this is
bankrupt.
this is the exception. Detroit is the exception.
Yeah,
for
if you
this.
look
Well, it happened with
at
Flint
how
first.
long
They've
the
had their time.
the councilmen and women
They're
in Detroit,
ridiculous.
they've been there forever. And they're like, oh no, let us fix it, let us fix it. You've had your chance, man. It's time to let somebody try something new.
yeah, I
That's how
can't
feel
believe
about,
it's
that's
taken
how I
them
feel
so
about
long.
politics in general. Whether you're talking about the House, the Senate, state, or federal,
Oh,
presidential.
I don't know if we have time to
No,
start
we
that.
don't. We really don't, man. But
we're gonna have to pull
all-
that one up next
they
time.
all make too
dirty,
much money.
dirty fucking game.
And see
you
what
know?
happens when you take their money away from them, which will never happen.
No.
But you know, these people are getting paid insane amounts of money.
Life for life.
Yeah, and they're just making decisions for themselves, not for any, you know, and that we'll go back to the education part. Is the problem with Detroit is the people are so stupid that live there because of the lack of a proper
Yeah.
education
Well, hold on.
that they elect these dumbasses to run their city.
But you're saying stupid. I would change that out with ignorant, because I don't
Ignorant,
think
yeah.
You know, stupid.
That's fair.
Stupid is like, you know, somebody is being stupid, where
That knows
you know,
better.
They know better,
Right.
But they're truly. I think I think a lot of Americans, man, and you know, Earthlings for that matter, are ignorant about what is happening around them.
And then
you just have to kind of open your eyes and look at the deeper stuff. Look a little bit deeper than what Fox News and CNN and all those people are telling you. Get your news source a little bit outside of the United States for a
Yeah.
little bit, and you get an outside perspective. Shit is fucked up here, man. I'm not saying it's like it's the worst place in the world, but we
it's
have
got a different
lot,
set of problems.
Yeah, we have
you know?
a lot of ground to catch
But the
up.
people, you know, and a lot of times it's people from the suburbs that are saying that, you know, well, these people have a choice, you know. So these people that were growing up in poverty with lack of an education system, they don't have the choices that we had growing up in the suburbs, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll argue that all day.
They don't have the choices, but there are opportunities.
There's
The problem is that they don't know about the opportunities.
Exactly.
That's where the real ignorance
Exactly.
kills them. It's not that they're incapable. It's not that there's not opportunities. They don't know about them, and there are people who are trying to keep them from knowing about them, and that's real evil.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, if there's real evil in the world, that is it. Keeping people ignorant for whatever your motivation is, whether it's power or profit, or usually it's
So basically, politicians is
both.
what
That's
you're
what I'm
saying.
talking, yeah, man. You know, you can get around everything. So I think we're going to have to wrap it up here. We're at like the 50-minute mark. Toby, I know you got a jet. I really appreciate you guys coming in. I think that
This is
was
awesome.
this was
Yeah,
a nice
this is great.
cohesive group.
If you guys
And,
are out there and you're listening, thank you. Come back. We want to do this again and
Yes.
again and again.
I'd like to do a weekly podcast. I think more realistic is bi-weekly. We'll have I have a lot of people on a potential podcast guest list that I'm going to start reaching out to. I wanted to get this pilot taken care of. This has kind of been growing organically since November. I launched the Facebook secret IGC, Intellectual Gentlemen's Club group, which is still out there. You can send me an email if you're on Facebook, and I can add you to the group. I'm interested to meet a lot of different people with a lot of different concepts and insights, and I'm hoping I can bring that to the cloud here for all you guys to enjoy. So again, thanks for listening. You can find us at www.intellectualgentlemensclub.com. We're on Facebook at Intellectual Gentlemen's Club. Our Twitter is at IGCcast. We have a Google Plus page, but I'm pretty ignorant on how that works right now, so I probably won't have much response on it, but I did throw something up there with a page. I'm creating a YouTube. We're not going to do some video probably for, the next month or so. I'm trying to figure out how to get video incorporated to this, but
Nobody
I'll put
wants to see us.
We need a
Yeah.
monkey or something.
Yeah, no, I'll put a picture so we can get it up so you can at least see our faces. And then the audio hopefully will be on iTunes soon. I'm learning about RSS feeds, so I'm going to get this posted up. If you guys would like to support us,
Please.
you can
Begging.
throw me an email at igccast@gmail.com if you have any sponsorship things you want to talk about. You can also go to our website and use the Amazon link. That costs you nothing extra. If you go to buy anything from Amazon, click on our link. We get a portion of the profits from Amazon directly, not from you. Also, I have some Google ads on there. They usually put some bullshit on there, but if you want to give it a click, it throws a couple dollars in the pocket. So I did drop a little bit of money on this equipment, and I'm not doing this for profit. I'm just hoping to kind of recoup some of the financial investment that I put in this and just keep this thing rolling. I don't have any delusions of grandeur about being Joe Rogan here, so just trying to put out some good vibe, and I'm hoping the universe throws some good stuff back. So get online, share us, like us. It does increase the traffic. If you guys have any guest suggestions, throw it down. So I just want to say thanks for listening again, and hang loose, everyone.
Peace.
See ya.